but I sent out a revised, did I send out a revised email? Yes, I did this morning, because the one I sent out yesterday, I mentioned about a possible in-person, in-class quiz on Friday. You're welcome to come and try to take one on Friday, but if we do that, it'll be Tuesday, not tomorrow. Okay. Oh, that's right. I said I would start with a few minutes about Lord of the Rings. No, we've got to go on. Harry Potter. Have I mentioned, or did I ask the first day of class? I don't remember. How many of you know how she came up with this idea? Anybody? She was on a train from Manchester to London, okay? Let me back up a little bit. J.K. Rowling's from essentially kind of southwest England, not Cornwall, the area around Gloucester. She grew up near Gloucester, near the Forest of Dean, which figures prominently in Book 7. She attended Exeter University with, if I remember correctly, majoring in classics and Romance languages, French and classics. She couldn't get into Oxford. Grades weren't high enough to get into Oxford. After university, she went to Portugal and worked for Amnesty International. Two very, very different endeavors. Met a Portuguese journalist who was apparently drop-dead gorgeous, fell wildly, madly in love very, very quickly. Got married, got pregnant. I don't know that it was necessarily in that order, if it matters or not. I think it was within 6 weeks. Might have been a little bit longer, might have been more like 3 months. Pretty sure it was 6 weeks. Got married, got pregnant, he dumped her. Before her daughter was born. Daughter's eldest child, Jessica. I think he dumped her when she was 6 months pregnant. Okay? She moved back to the UK. She didn't move back to England. She moved to Scotland. Lived in Edinburgh. Tried writing, nothing successful. Okay? She had written, since she was a young child, 8 or 9 years old, she had written stories and such. She'd done some things that had gotten some little humanities support, I think maybe some short stories or something like that. Anyways, she had some kind of appointment in London. I've never read anything about why she was going to London. But she was on a train from Manchester to London. Okay? That train, by the way, pulls into St. Pancras Station in London, which is literally right across the street from King's Cross. They are both big train stations, okay? King's Cross trains from there pretty much go up the eastern side of the UK, okay? If you want to go to Edinburgh from London, you get a train from King's Cross. If you want to go to Manchester or Leeds, I'm pretty sure Leeds, you take a train from St. Pancras. If you want to go to Glasgow, I'm pretty sure you take the St. Pancras. Or you take the train from King's Cross, go to Edinburgh, and then go to Glasgow. Okay? So, she's unemployed, living on Scottish version of welfare, has I don't remember how old her daughter is at that point. I don't think she's a year old yet. And she's on this train. In one moment, she has no idea about Harry Potter. And literally, a second later, an idea pops into her mind about a boy who discovers on his 11th birthday that he is being pursued by the greatest dark wizard who ever lived, who wants to kill him, who has already killed his parents. That's all that happens. Just that idea goes off in her brain. It's like when Tolkien turns that page of that blue book in the summer of 1931, I think it is, and writes, "In a hole in the ground there lived a hobbit." Okay? Question I always ask my students, because I haven't heard the answer that satisfies me. Where do those ideas come from? It's not like Tolkien was sitting there wondering, or like Rowling was sitting there wondering, I need a great idea for a book that'll make me billions of dollars. It literally just, it's almost like there's this idea floating in the air, and the train car goes through that idea, and she's the one it sticks to. What I'm really getting at is, why not me? Why didn't I come up with that idea? Okay? So, she has this idea, and she starts fleshing out the story on legal pad notepads, right? She spends a lot of time when she's back in Edinburgh. She goes to a couple of different cafes. When I used to teach my Harry Potter course in London, we would always go to the Elephant Cafe, which now is like a shrine to the Harry Potter stuff. It's actually, it's either that one or the other one is now a Chinese restaurant. But you go in and use the loo, use the toilet. It's really weird because it's apparently this way in both the men's and the women's toilets. You know, on the toilet seat cover are all these pictures of Harry Potter characters taken from the films. And I think actually on the toilet seat, they have like decoupaged photographs. Very strange. Anyways, so she starts writing this stuff. Okay? Anybody know how many times she is rejected when she finishes the first novel?
Isn't it 12 or 7?
It varies. I've seen anywhere from 12 to I think 21. Okay. She sends a typescript off to a publisher. Nope, not right for us. Nope, not right for us. Nope, not right for us. I don't know about you, but man, she's made of sterner stuff than I am. Because after 5 or 6, I'd have given up totally. So let's assume it is 21, because I've seen that number referenced more than I have the 12. Imagine you were one of those 21 acquisitions editors who turned it down. Because the 22nd acquisitions editor at Bloomsbury Press in London took a shot at it, said yes. And Bloomsbury printed a fairly small print run, okay, of the first book. No advertising, none. They just printed it and sent it out, okay? So how did it get so famous? Louder?
Word of mouth.
Word of mouth. A parent would pick it up on the off chance it might be good, give it to a son or daughter. Son or daughter just devoured it and told their friend, lent it to their friend. The friend tells their parents. The parents buys them. That's how the first book, that's how the second book also got spread. Okay? First book was published in 97, second book in 98, third book, Prisoner of Azkaban, in 99. First time I heard about it was, I think, spring of 99. I was driving into work. It's back when I used to listen to NPR. And the NPR London bureau chief, a guy named T.R. Reid, who's a good journalist actually, said, you know, there's this new series of books that is kind of taking London by storm, kind of reminiscent of C.S. Lewis's Chronicles of Narnia, but he's not, you know, the writer isn't staid and stodgy in allegorically preaching to kids. It's more interesting and exciting. Lewis is one of the reasons I'm doing what I'm doing. And so, you know, that immediately put a knock in my head not to read these things.
Huh.
Literally, probably 2 weeks later, I was at Sam's Club doing shopping, and there's a big stack of books, the Harry Potter books, with the third one taking kind of, you know, primacy of place because it was brand new. And I picked up the first one, and I literally read the first page, and I was hooked. Okay? Went home, read it all, went back, got the next one the next day, got the next two the next day, okay? In kind of story. When did they start doing release parties? Anybody know?
Was it like the mid-2000s or like the late?
No, I mean, sorry, which book?
Oh.
Book 4. Okay, in 2000. 97, 98, 99, book 4 is 2000. You know what else happened in 2000? It was the first time you could order a book via Amazon. I don't think Barnes & Noble had an online presence yet. Via Amazon, even though the book had not physically been printed yet. Okay? Moreover, before you could do this, before you could even hold the book, before anybody could even read the book, it was the #1 bestseller on the New York Times. Okay? From that book being the #1 bestseller on the New York Times list, I think, I could be wrong here, but I'm pretty sure a Harry Potter novel held the #1 bestseller place on the New York Times book list for the next, that was 2000, I think for the next 4 years. It was with, I'm pretty sure it's book, so that was 4, so book 5 was 2002, wait, book 7 came out in 2007, book 6 came out in 2005, book 5 came out in 2003, I think, 2002 or 2003. I'm pretty sure it's with books, beginning with book 6. It might have been Order of the Phoenix. The New York Times changed the way they figure out the bestsellers. And they did that for one reason: to knock J.K. Rowling off #1. And the way they changed it was to say children's books cannot be at the top. Because these obviously began as children's books. I would argue by the time you get to the end, they're not children's books per se. Courtney?
Didn't they also get like a lot of backlash in the Christian community about?
Yeah, we'll talk about that.
Okay.
That was before books 5, 6, and 7. That was really with books 3 and 4 when those came out. Okay? So what they said was, we're going to create another list. The New York Times bestseller list for children. Once they did that, 1, 2, 3, 4, 5 were Harry Potter. When book 6 came out, 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6. When book 7 came out, 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7. Not necessarily in the order of the books, because when book 7 came out, it went to the top. Okay? And even if you look at book sales, book 7, book 6, book 5, book 4, all, each individually outsold the top book on the other New York Times bestseller list. Okay, you would think bestseller list would mean what? The book that sells the most copies. It outdid them. Okay. So she goes from, I don't have it written up here, in 1991, when she first starts writing Harry Potter stories, all right? And she doesn't just start one. She immediately kind of realizes this is going to be a 7-book series. And so she starts taking notes, and she has a separate legal-sized box for notes for each volume. Notes of names, notes of characters. And when I say names, I mean just names that she's interested in. She pulls names out of history. Most of her names are historical. Let me rephrase that. Most of her human names are historical. Griphook is not a historical name, obviously. But Albus, Brian, I always get his name mixed up. Percival, Woolric, Dumbledore, Albus, Brian, Percival, all those are real names. Okay? Woolric is a Scottish saint. Mad Dog. Alastor. Alastor is a real historical Scottish name. Hogwarts, sorry, not Hogwarts, Hogsmeade is a name. Godric, very real name. Okay? Gryffindor, we'll talk about that a little bit. So she goes from writing the stories, the notes for the stories, in 1991 to 1997, becoming the richest woman in Great Britain. She goes from being essentially penniless to being a billionaire. Okay? What does she do with all of her money? I mean, she does save some of it. She donates an awful lot to causes that are near and dear to her heart. Okay? Amnesty International gets a lot, et cetera, et cetera. Okay. Any other background stuff? She remarries in 2000. Okay, book 5 comes out, I think, in 2003. I think she remarries in around 2001, 2002. Dentist or orthodontist or, really? Some brains, and he's like, yes, I'm taken care of for the rest of my life. And now, she has to have private security wherever she goes. Not only because of her wealth, but because of positions she's taken in the last 5 years that have made her probably the most hated woman in Great Britain, also.
What do you mean?
Let me answer that later. We'll get to it. We'll get to it a little later, because there are going to be some things brought up that others have talked about that we'll talk about later. One other question, Courtney's question or comment about the Christian community in the late '90s, very early 2000s, when the books became a hit in the United States. Like late 98 and in 99. Once they attracted a lot of publicity, and a segment, I'm not going to call it even a large segment because I don't think it was, a segment of the kind of fundamentalist Christian community in the United States took very great offense at these books. Why? Witchcraft, wizardry, Old Testament laws, burn a witch. Literally, that's what the Old Testament says. Or stone. If you don't have fire, it's okay to rock them to death, so to speak. Okay. So witchcraft, but it's not just that. There's more than that. What else?
Context is important anytime you read the Bible.
Okay, context is important anytime you read the Bible or any other book. What else though? It wasn't just witchcraft. There was more to that. Many suggested she was intentionally trying to lead children into, let's use Snape's kind of favorite term, the dark arts, into the occult. Why? Well, because you have spells and magic. And when book 4 comes around, what do you see? You see essentially, not literally, figuratively, you see kind of a black mass. All right? That is, you see a ritual performed that brings the dead back to life, or the mostly dead, if you're familiar with Princess Bride, the mostly dead back to life, and what kind of existence is the person brought back to? Not necessarily a great one. It's not the Jesus kind of resurrection or even the Gandalf the White kind of resurrection that we see. Right? So we started seeing book burnings, literal public book burnings, where churches would have bonfires and burn the books. We had parents calling into libraries to have the books removed from school libraries. Note. That is not banning. Banning is a very specific term. Banning means what? If a book is banned, it's no longer available. Every book on the American Library Association book banned list, you can get on Amazon right now and buy it. Or Barnes and Noble. Or Walmart or Target. They're all available. None of them have been banned in the sense that, because the term banning refers to government banning. Okay? Refers to the government saying, and the government used to do this, saying, you cannot have or read this work. Okay? James Joyce's Ulysses, if I remember correctly, was initially banned in the United States. You could not purchase it. A bookseller would not carry it. All right? And it doesn't matter to me, what you think about those individuals. Yes?
Does that mean that the Bible is a banned book in China?
That's a good question.
Is the Bible a banned book in China, is what she asked. I don't think so, because I'm pretty sure Chinese churches can actually have the Bible, they can read the Bible, but it's persecuted. There's a difference between being banned and being persecuted with it. North Korea, yes, because China does say we have a religiously free society. They say that. Okay? Like Sarah Mann said, Gandalf, we can share the ring, kind of a thing. Okay? But North Korea does not. North Korea outlaws pretty much all religion. Okay? Yes?
I googled her question because I was curious too, now that she brought that up. But it says that Apple removed the Bible and the Quran from their Chinese Apple store. So I'm guessing they're slowly working towards that in China?
Well, that means you can't get them from the Apple store.
Correct.
That doesn't necessarily, if it were to be a real banning, it would mean you could not get it anywhere.
Okay.
Now, and I don't know that that's because the Chinese government, told Apple. Now, the Chinese government does tell big internet tech companies certain things to do, and they do it.
No.
They do it for one reason.
Money.
Keep going. What's the market?
Connections.
You got over 1 billion consumers in China. United States, you have, take children out, 200 million or so. Who are you going to attempt to please more? 1 billion that can buy your stuff, or 200 million that can. That's why, my opinion, you can disagree obviously, the NBA bends over backwards to make China happy. And there are some players, some former coaches in the NBA who said things about China, and that's why they are former coaches. Thinking of the guy who used to coach the Dallas Mavericks. Yeah, last name Morey. He said some things about China, and he's no longer working. Okay. So parents asked for the books to be removed. Rowling said in an interview with the Vancouver Sun, I think it was around 2001, 2002, an interviewer sat down with her and started asking her questions. She said there are going to be 7 books. She pretty much knows the story arc for the entire series as well as each book. At that point, she said, I have the last sentence written for the last book. Okay. She said the reason there's going to be 7 books is because there are 7 Chronicles of Narnia. And C.S. Lewis was one of her favorite writers. I mean, she actually said in one interview, if she walked into a room that was like a library or had shelves of books, and there was a set of the Chronicles of Narnia, she could not help herself but go and pick up one of the books and read a few pages. Like almost there was this manic tendency in her. Okay. Anyways, the interviewer asks her, so are you a Christian? And she kind of demurred and eventually said, yes, I am. Well, what kind? What flavor? What stripe? What denomination Christian are you? Catholic, Protestant, Orthodox, whatever. And she said, Church of Scotland, Presbyterian, in other words. She's like, okay. And then she says, or she asked, the journalist asks, how does your Christianity inform or affect your writing? In other words, where is Christianity in the Harry Potter novels? At this point, I think the first 4 were written, okay? And Rowling kind of, tries to dodge the question. But she does say, if I were to answer that now, it would give away the ending. Which seems to indicate that she was suggesting somehow Christianity was central to the overall arc of the story. Not that we're going to see Jesus or Mary or Joseph or the saints or the church. Are there any references to Jesus, Mary, Joseph, the saints, or the church at all?
No.
Literally none. You never hear a character even say, an exclamation. Jesus! Doesn't happen.
No.
We do hear God. Okay? Especially as we get farther and farther into the books. Book 7, we start to hear repeatedly, thank God, thank God, thank God. Now, it might just be a phrase, but I don't think it is because of the context in which it's used and because of what she said in an interview with a novelist, fantasy novelist / critic when Book 7 came out. Book 7 came out, and he said, essentially, where's God in your book? God seems to be absent. You seem to have killed off God. And she was like, taken aback, surprised. And she said, I don't think he's as absent as you think he is. And that was her subtle way of saying, you're not a very astute reader. Because he published an article, New York Times, if I remember correctly, that says, J.K., title is essentially, this isn't it verbatim, J.K. Rowling kills God in final book. You can imagine what, the Christians who'd kind of simmered down a little bit, got rather upset at that. Okay, that's all background. Harry Potter and the Sorcerer's Stone. No. The title is Harry Potter and the Philosopher's Stone. So why does our copy say Harry Potter and the Sorcerer's Stone?
Because Americans are stupid.
That's what I say. Don't mean to, well, I do
They
mean to
dumbed it
influence you,
down
but
for us.
the American editor / publisher, Arthur A. Levine. This says Scholastic, but it also has, I believe, in here somewhere, all rights reserved, published by Scholastic Inc., Scholastic, Arthur A. Levine Books. Okay? Arthur A. Levine was the one who purchased the American rights to it. Okay? Well, Arthur A. Levine, in his / its wisdom, I don't know if the guy's still alive or if they just take his name, said in negotiating with Rowling, an American parent is never going to buy a book for his or her child that has the word philosopher in the title. What's the problem with that statement?
It doesn't make sense.
Okay, well, that's true. I mean, it's an idiotic statement. Other than that.
People are going to buy the book regardless.
Okay. Is the word of the book in the title philosopher? No, it's philosopher '(S). Philosophers. There's a difference. Because the phrase, the word philosopher, doesn't stand on its own in the title. It's not Harry Potter and the Philosopher. It's Harry Potter and the Philosopher's Stone. What's my point? It's the phrase Philosopher's Stone that is significant. Why? What's the Philosopher's Stone? In the real world, not in the world of Harry Potter. It was long thought to have really existed. I mean, it is an actual, so to speak, artifact in intellectual history going back at least 3,000 years, and not just in the Western world. The ancient Chinese were trying to create and or find the Philosopher's Stone. The ancient Egyptians had an idea of the Philosopher's Stone. They were trying to create and or find it. Why? What's so big? What's the big deal about the Philosopher's Stone?
I mean, immortality and infinite money.
You mean a Sorcerer's Stone or the Philosopher's?
The real thing.
Oh, okay.
The Sorcerer's Stone is a misnomer.
Yeah.
There is no Sorcerer's Stone in human intellectual history. It never existed until 1997. Actually, 1998, I believe, is when this comes out in the US. It wasn't real. The Philosopher's Stone was. So that when somebody picked up a book in England with the word Philosopher's Stone, because the English, don't mean to offend anybody, are a little bit better educated than most Americans, if they've gone through the English public school system, they've heard of this already. Okay? The Philosopher's Stone is mentioned in a lot of medieval literature. It's mentioned in the Renaissance writers, etc., etc. So, the Philosopher's Stone works in two ways, two levels. Where is it most popularly discussed? Or in relation to what branch of science?
Alchemy.
Alchemy. Most of modern science comes out of medieval alchemy. Astronomy does. Chemistry does. Okay. A lot of medical science, does. Okay. So, with the Philosopher's Stone, you can turn base metal, like the steel that this key is made out of, or I have no idea what this is, tin or something that this is made out of, you can turn that into gold. We already are able to do that, even without a Philosopher's Stone. Why don't we turn lead into gold then? It's hugely expensive. It's less expensive to go out and dig and try to find gold than it is to turn lead into gold. So that's one thing. What else? With it, you can create aqua vita, the water of life. Okay? Or you can create a drink that confers immortality. It's not one sip and you're done. You got to keep drinking it. Okay? Kind of like Polyjuice Potion in that sense. That's the surface level. Bear in mind, alchemy ultimately is not about the real world in scientific experiments and such. It's about the real world as a doorway, a pathway to the other world. Just like almost all of the Egyptian practices are designed for what? The journey after death. Okay? So, immortality, not immortality of this, but immortality of the soul. Not turning this to gold, but transmuting the soul to gold. Well, how do you turn something that's immaterial into something that's material? You're not. Gold is a metaphor for what? Or an image of what? Wealth. What else?
Just
Purity. Purity. The highest metal, it was thought. Now we know it's what? Titanium or something like that, is the most expensive, most rare metal and such. Okay? So the alchemists were about personal transformation. Personal purification. All right? Open the book. So it's Harry Potter and the Philosopher's Stone, not the Sorcerer's. One more comment. Would the first book have driven or drawn fundamentalist Christians out of the woodwork if it had been titled Harry Potter and the Philosopher's Stone? Probably not, or not as much. What doesn't it then have? Sorcery. If you've seen the latest installment of Stranger Things, and if you haven't, you need to. Get a life and watch TV. Why? Because the paranoia that they're depicting about Dungeons and Dragons in 1985, okay, it's very real. I was 20-some years old in 1985, and I remember at one point one guy pulls out a Newsweek magazine, and it's got Dungeons and Dragons on the front, leading them to Satan. I remember that exact issue, because we got Newsweek and Time every week, kind of a thing, okay? So, all that stuff was real. This isn't that much later after that, all right? Plus, there have been some things happen between then and the 90s in terms of serial killers and murderers and Satanists and, the whole 9 yards kind of thing, okay? So, not a smart move. Also changed words throughout the book. Like, what are crisps? Potato chips. What is cellophane tape?
It's like Scotch tape.
Scotch tape. We kind of tend to call things like that more by their brand name, tissues that you blow your nose with. Most people don't say tissue, they say hand me Kleenex. Kleenex is a brand name kind of a thing. All kinds of things like that. That goes on, I'm pretty sure, through the first 5 books in the American publications. I think it's beginning book 7, they stopped changing it. Stop changing those words. Okay. Now we're going to fly. Couple moments. Chapter 1, The Boy Who Lived. Stay open. First paragraph. Mr. and Mrs. Dursley of number 4 Privet Drive are proud to say that they're perfectly normal. Thank you very much. That thank you very much is a Britishism. Her immediate audience would have immediately understood all of that. Americans are kind of like, well, why do you put that in? That's kind of odd. But it's not. They were the last people you'd expect to be involved in anything strange or mysterious, because they just didn't hold with such nonsense. So notice, anything strange or mysterious is what? Nonsense. It's irrational. It doesn't make sense. Okay? What are they about to be introduced to? Whole lot of nonsense. A whole lot of strangeness and mysteriousness. What does strange mean?
Different than you know.
Different than you know. What else?
Weird.
Weird, out of the ordinary, abnormal, okay? Mysterious. Is that kind of just out there, you're not quite sure? Inexplicable, cannot be explained. All right? So, if they are like this, what does that tell us about the Dursleys?
They're like hobbits, but a lot meaner.
Oh, really? You think they're like hobbits?
Well, in that they like their own little lives. They have everything in kind of their own way. They don't get involved in anything out of the ordinary.
Okay.
It's between you and that gossip.
They're just a lot meaner.
Okay.
They like to live in their happy little box.
They live in their happy little box. Everything is nice and set, right? The house is described how? It's kind of surgically clean. We're told that Mrs. Dursley's kitchen is like a surgery in its sterility. Okay? What does she spend her days doing? Seemingly, according to the description we're given.
Cleaning and taking care of Dudley, listening to neighbor gossip.
Spying on her neighbors. She's described as having kind of a long neck that she uses looking over the fence. She's kind of a busybody in that sense. Okay? Vernon works at a drill factory. Okay? Told he's a big, beefy man with hardly any neck, with a large mustache. She is thin and blonde, had nearly twice the usual amount of neck. So think about that for a moment. So, like this. Which came in very useful as she spent so much of her time craning over garden fences, spying on the neighbors. And then they have a son. Okay? So, we're going to skip a bunch. Mr. Dursley goes to work. He overhears some conversations. He bumps into some people, skipping a bunch. Okay? Mr. Dursley thinks, could this have anything to do with her family? Because he hears the name Potter. And her sister is married to someone named Potter. Page 8. We get introduced to a cat and a man. Okay. Nothing like this man had ever been seen on the street before. We get a long description of him. All right. We get his name, Albus Dumbledore. Albus, notice, means white. Dumbledore is the Old English word for bumblebee. Significance? Yeah, maybe as we get a little bit more into the book. Because what does seemingly Dumbledore do? He's in constant movement. He's constantly kind of like, I'm going to use a phrase I probably shouldn't use, moving chess pieces on the chessboard. Okay? He addresses the cat, Miss McGonagall, Professor McGonagall, page 9. She said, how do you know it was me? He said, I've never seen a cat sit so stiffly. What does that tell us about McGonagall? She's rigid and strict, okay? Maggie Smith was excellent casting. And Richard Harris was excellent casting, but he had to go and die, So they had to get Michael Gambon for Dumbledore. And Michael Gambon's, don't get me wrong, fantastic actor. I saw him in a couple of Shakespeare plays at the National Theatre in London, where I was sitting like where you are, and I'm Gambon. I mean, he was playing the character of Falstaff. If you know anything about Shakespeare's play, Falstaff is one of Shakespeare's great comic characters. Big, fat, bloated guy, And he's spouting off his lines, literally spitting on me from where I was. I didn't like that part, but, great actor. Same film, the guy who plays Argus Filch was in. Same play, by the way, okay? Who is also totally underused in the Harry Potter films. So, they talk, and they talk about what has happened. And page 11, she says, even if you know who has gone, does the dash mean she stops?
No.
Or is that when he interrupts her?
She's interrupted.
My dear professor, surely a sensible person like yourself can call him by his name. All this you-know-who nonsense. For 11 years, I've been trying to persuade people to call him by his proper name, Voldemort. It all gets so confusing, okay? I've never seen any reason to be frightened of saying Voldemort's name, or Voldemort, as J.K. Rowling says it. She pronounces it in the French fashion. He says, I know you haven't, but you're different. Everyone knows you're the only one, oh, all right, Voldemort wasn't frightened of. He says, you flatter me. Voldemort has powers I'll never have, only because you're too noble to use them. Now notice what she is saying in response. He says, he has powers I will never have. She says, you're too noble to use them. If you wanted to, you could have them. Or maybe even, you do have them, you just don't use them, okay? And he talks about blushing. So, They talk about what has happened at Godric's Hollow. I put all this up and I meant to talk about it and I forgot to. Come on, babe. Godric. Anybody know what the name Godric means? Or where it comes from? This is God. It could be the Old English God, which means good. Okay? The word God and the word good are spelled exactly the same in Old English. It's all the pronunciation of the vowel. God or God. Right? Rick, you're probably familiar with, but not in that sense. You may have heard, Hitler started a little movement that he called the Third Reich. That's the same as that. It's the same word. If you're a Catholic, you will have bishopric. It's the bishop's kingdom. Reich means kingdom. So God or good, K-I-N-G-D-O-M. And when you have this kind of thing, this kind of compound word, this part is possessive. God's kingdom or Good's kingdom. Okay? So we find out something happened at Godric's Hollow. And Lily and James Potter have died. And Dumbledore is having their son, Harry, brought to the Dursleys. Why? Don't answer why from later on. Answer why from just right now from what we know. They're the only family he has. Who? Vernon? Petunia. And she's like, Dumbledore, they'll never understand. She says, page 13, you can't. You couldn't find two people who are less like us. It's the best place. I've written a letter. A letter? Really? You think a letter's going to explain everything? These people will never understand him. He'll be famous, a legend. I wouldn't be surprised if today was known as Harry Potter Day in the future. There will be books written about Harry. Okay, jumping into the future for just a moment to answer one little question. Don't go anywhere else. What date is this? Anybody know? Nope. The day that they are there talking is November 1st. Harry's parents were killed on October 31st. Okay? What is November 1st? Anybody know? Well, what's October 31st? Halloween. What's its real name? All Hallows Eve. All Hallows Day is November 1st. What's the Hallows mean? All Saints Day. It's when the church commemorates all the saints together. Okay? Interestingly enough, later on, book 5, going to give something away. Somebody is going to refer to Harry as, no, I'm not going to use that one, as Saint Potter. After the person calls him by another name, which I'm not going to use yet, because I don't want to give that part away. I can call him Saint Potter without giving anything away. All Saints Day, she says it's going to be called what? Harry Potter Day. Okay, just link the two together and then just let it sit there, put it away in the back of your mind somewhere. Okay? There will be books written about Harry. Exactly. It would be enough to turn any boy's head. Famous before he can walk and talk. Famous for something he won't even remember. That's why he needs to grow up here. Here where? Where they don't hold to any nonsense. What happens, theoretically, let's just assume for a moment, that he takes Harry to the, not Dursleys, Weasleys to be raised. They're going to tell him everything, man. And he's going to be raised kind of thinking what about himself?
He's special.
Oh, yeah.
He's
How special?
very
The
especially
The special, yeah, I'm
especially
the
to
special.
Molly.
Okay? So, Hagrid arrives. How does Hagrid arrive?
On a
flying
motorbike.
motorcycle.
Which belonged to Sirius Black, young Sirius Black, as he refers to him. Okay? I'm not going to say anything else other than, Rowling uses what is called a ring or envelope structure for these 7 books. Book 1 has its parallel with Book 7. Okay? Just like we saw, and it didn't hit me until Tuesday when I was teaching Lord of the Rings. Just like we saw in Lord of the Rings, the second last to the last chapter of Book 6 paralleled the second chapter of Book 1. I don't know that kind of paralleling structure works all throughout, because I literally never thought of it until Tuesday. Book 2 balances or has parallel events with Book 6. Book 3 has parallels with Book 5. Interestingly, Book 4 sits like by itself. Why? Because Book 4 is louder.
It's where everything changes.
It is where everything changes.
It goes from just a child going to school to a child in a war.
Think of Book 4 as being like these. Those are hinges. What do? They allow the door to open and close. Books 1 through 3 are the opening of the door. In books 5 through 6 are the proverbial closing of the door. Books 1 through 3 lead us to Book 4. Books 5 through 7, sorry, not 5 through 6. Books 5 through 7 come from Book 4. Book 4 is the so-called linchpin. There's an awful lot there, which is why I usually have like 4 days assigned to it, and now we're cut down to 2.5. It's not going to happen, by the way. So Hagrid says goodbye, and we get the vanishing glass. I'm not going to talk anything about, other than Harry recounts a dream. He mentions the dream, and what does Uncle Vernon do?
Loses it.
Loses his top, man. He's like, there's no such thing as flying motorcycles. He's like, it's a dream, man. Chill. Okay? He goes to the zoo, sees the boa from the Amazon. What's the problem right there? It's the first real problem, and it's minor. I'll admit, it's totally minor. In Rowling's writing, it's something to do with the snake. Any of you like snakes? When I was a little kid, like up until about, I don't know, from like 6 till 10 or 12, I wanted to be a herpetologist. That's a snake expert. I read everything I could about snakes. I knew as a 7-year-old what J.K. Rowling apparently didn't know as a 30-year-old or so. Snakes don't have eyelids. They cannot blink. This snake winks at Harry. It can't. Maybe a magical snake. It ain't a magical snake. It's just a snake from the Amazon. Okay? So, glass disappears, Harry gets in trouble, etc. We're going to go on. Harry starts getting letters. Notice Harry's never gotten a letter before. He wants to know what they say. Uncle Vernon keeps him away from them, keeps them away from them, to where essentially, when should the Dursleys realize they're not going to be able to escape this future?
Petunia figures it out.
Okay. I mean, when specifically, dealing with the letters, which letter or group of letters should tell them there's no way they're escaping this?
Second one. The
Wait.
second group.
Which arrives how?
Um,
First one comes through the mail.
is that the one that she found like wound up in the egg carton?
Next one comes through the door in windows, fireplace. I believe it's the third day. It's not in the egg carton.
Or is it in the eggs?
All of the eggs.
Each egg has a letter inside it. How the hell do you get letters inside eggs? You don't feed them to the chickens and they produce them biology doesn't work that way. That should be the dead giveaway. We're going to have to show them the letter. But no. Why? Because Vernon doesn't hold to that kind of nonsense. He's going to deny that reality as long as he can. How long can he deny it?
Not for much longer after that.
Until 1201, July 31st, 1991, I believe is the actual year. Okay? When they're out in the hut, on the rock, in the sea, off the coast of England. And the front door gets banged down. And in comes Hagrid. Okay? So Hagrid delivers Harry his letters, tells Harry he's a wizard. He says, excuse me, I'm a what? Tells him about his parents, finds out the Dursleys haven't told them anything. Where does Vernon make his not quite fatal mistake? Where does he make in reference to Dudley, a porcine mistake? Having to do with pork? When he calls Albus Dumbledore a crackpot. It's like the Maha, Dumbledore. I'm not gonna, and he curses Dudley accidentally. He's kind of aiming for him. Okay, so he gives Harry his letters, and Harry reads them. He talks about Voldemort. He mentions the name once, but won't anymore. He tells Harry, your parents weren't killed in a car wreck. They were killed by Voldemort and such. And where is it? Petunia, page 53. New? K-N-E-W. Knew? Of course we knew. How could you not be, my dreaded sister being what she was? Oh, she got a letter just like, and she just goes on. Why?
Because she's jealous.
Because the stopper, the cork has been pulled, and all that anger and jealousy just, So, skipping a bunch again, they go off to name the place. Where does Hagrid take Harry? Now, I heard somebody say this, like this part was pronounced this way. Is it Diagon Alley? Or is it Diagon? Notice what I almost did. Diagonally. How do you find Diagon Alley?
You tell a brick.
Okay, first you have to find the right spot on Charing Cross Road. We're going to be told later on, between a music store and a bookstore. I think every time I took students to London, 3, 5, 7, 9, 11, 13, 16, 7 times. Never thought about that. Fit perfectly, one for each book. I would walk them up Charing Cross Road. And I'm not kidding. Some of them were eagerly looking. Bookstore. It's clothing store, shoot. Because they're looking for bookstore, record store. Because between those two is supposed to be the entrance, okay? But it's not. How do you see Diagon Alley?
You have to be magic.
You have to be magic. You've got to go into the pub first, right? What's the name of the pub?
Leaky cauldron.
Leaky Cauldron. That's what we can't see. Probably all you can. I can't find as that. And then you have to find the right, thing. Why did I say the thing like this? Okay. That's one way of looking at it. What's another way? What can you not do? And this applies to kind of everything dealing from this world's perspective to the magical world. You're not going to find it looking head on. Where's it going to occur? corner of your eye. In other words, you've got to change your perspective. You can't look at things the way you're used to normally looking at them. Okay? So, they go to Diagon Alley, and Harry goes around to get his supplies. Hagrid takes him to Gringotts. He gets a bunch of money out. Harry finds out what? He's loaded. And if the Dursleys knew, that could be trouble. Okay? Who does Harry meet while getting measured for robes? Draco, dragon, what his name means. Malfoy, it's French. Malfoy, bad faith. What's his father's name? Lucius. Sound like anything?
Lucifer.
Related to anything? Lucifer or Lucy. Lucy means clear sight. Lucifer, the name, it's Satan's original name, means what? Anybody know? It's a beautiful name. It is a wonderful name. It is a fantastic name. But nobody's going to name their child that anymore, just like nobody's going to name, if their last name's Hitler, their child Adolf. You don't do that. It means bearer of light. Light bearer. Okay? So he meets Draco Malfoy, and they talk. Malfoy says, we could be friends. He sees Hagrid. He calls him a servant, and Harry immediately doesn't like him because of that. All right? He goes to get his wand. 83, trying to zip through quickly. He meets Ollivander. Ollivander says, I knew you'd be coming soon. Looks at the scar, and he does something kind of just totally inappropriate. What does he do? He reaches out and touches his scar. It's like, dude, personal space. Just back off. And he says, I sold the one that did that. 13 and a half inches. Okay. You. 13 and a half. Why not 13 inches? Why not 12 or 14 inches? Anything about the number 13? Like, Friday the 13 is an unlucky number. That's why in The Hobbit, Bilbo's brought along so that there can be a 14th person. All right? Yew. Anybody know anything about the yew tree?
It's what they used to make bows.
They still do.
Well,
It's
yeah, still
great
do.
wood for making a bow for archery. It's poisonous. The leaves of the yew tree are poisonous. There's only one animal that can eat the leaves of a yew tree. According to mythology, at least. I'm not sure if this is actually real I think it is real in our real world. Anybody know what that animal is? A deer. If you've read the rest of the books, just kind of let that, I'm hearing, yeah. A deer can eat yew leaves. They're not poisonous to the deer. Okay? Don't say anything, just let that simmer. So, Ollivander asks Harry, what's your wand arm? What does that mean? What arm will you use to use your wand? Harry's like, I'm right-handed if that's what you mean. Why right-handed? Why not left-handed?
Well, left-handedness was considered like imperfect.
Left-handedness is almost like a disability.
Yeah.
Why? Notice, by the way, many of our presidents, more than average you should see from based upon our population, are left-handed. Okay? I don't know what that means. Well, I have a feeling, but anybody know what left is in Latin? Sinistre.
Oh,
Change the last two letters. Sinister. Bad. Evil. Okay? Harry's right-handed. So, Harry, does things, and they don't do anything. Bottom 84. Ollivander thinks, I wonder. Here, try this one. Holly and phoenix feather, 11 inches, nice and supple. Harry takes the wand, he feels warmth, he shakes, moves his hand, and what happens? Red and gold sparks come out. Red and gold colors? Gryffindor, okay. Holly and phoenix. What kind of wood is hollywood, or what kind of a tree is a holly tree? Does it lose its leaves?
No, it's evergreen.
It's evergreen, okay? Its leaves look kind of like this. All right? These are thorns on the end. It's used at Christmas time for decorating. Why? Well, because the leaves are green, and what else are on the branches at that time of year? Red berries. Okay? In the Middle Ages, this was symbolic. Why? Because the leaf is shaped kind of like a crown of thorns. Like is put on Jesus' head before the crucifixion. And it has red berries, like drops of blood. But it is evergreen, it doesn't die. All right? I'll warn you right now. Rowling uses tons of symbolism. And she goes back to the Middle Ages for nearly all of it. Yes?
Wasn't there another significance about the one where there's like only a certain number of those made? Or
Well, the wand chooses the person. It's kind of like there's only one of each.
there's only one other of that?
Yeah.
Yeah.
I'm pretty sure that's the case. So, holly, and the other thing? Phoenix. What's the phoenix? It's the bird that, according to kind of classical myth, lives for 500 years, and then on its 500th birthday, it poof, bursts into flame, and is reborn out of the ashes of that flame on its nest. It starts off as a little teeny tiny light fledgling, and it grows and lives for 500 years, and poof. Symbolic? Oh yeah, of resurrection, of death and rebirth. So Harry gets a wand that is symbolic of dying and rising, and of ever living, and of what else? Pain, red berries, sacrifice. Okay?
Just giving it away at the very beginning.
Journey from platform 9 3/4. She has him leave from King's Cross. I'm pretty sure because she misremembered. She thought the train from Manchester came into King's Cross. It didn't. It came into St. Pancras. Okay? So, he meets Malfoy again. What does Malfoy offer him? This is the only time, by the way, that something like this is offered that Harry is going to refer to at the end of the book. He's going to say, I'm not going to join the dark. He actually uses, I think, the phrase, the dark side. Nobody ever offers it to him. Nobody says, Harry, join me and we will rule the galaxy. Except for here. What does Malfoy offer?
Friendship.
And I can introduce you to the right people.
Right.
Okay? Harry says, no thanks, I think I can pick those out for myself. As he's sitting with Ron. Ron introduces him to chocolate frog cards and all that kind of stuff, and Harry has a Dumbledore card, which tells us what?
About Nicholas Flamel.
Tells us about Nicholas Flamel and a few other things. So we get the sorting hat. Yeah, we're not going to finish it. Page 121. I always do too much introduction stuff. I should just skip it from now on. Page 121. Harry puts the sorting hat on. What happens?
It's a grand debate in this.
Okay, notice the sorting hat tells us several things. Nobody else hears this, by the way. Just Harry. Difficult. Middle of 121. Very difficult. Plenty of courage, I see. Not a bad mind either. Now, is that a ringing endorsement?
No.
Is that, Oh, you're smart.
No, it's like,
No,
yeah,
it's-
you're barely there.
You're not too stupid. We can work with what you have, you know. Talent, oh my goodness, yeah. What does that mean?
Full count.
He's just bursting with talent. What is talent? Raw, innate ability. What does every talent need?
Practice.
Practice, training, focusing, okay? And a nice thirst to prove yourself. Now that's interesting. Why would Harry have a need or thirst to prove himself?
He just found out like a month and a half ago that he's this great wizard that defeated the darkest of all time.
And did he actually defeat Voldemort?
No.
It's like, you know, when Voldemort comes to curse him, does Harry kind of go, as a baby, you know, or, no, he doesn't. He just lies there and, you know, cries, okay? So, Harry thinks, not Slytherin, not Slytherin, not Slytherin. Why?
Because Draco. And because Hagrid.
Because Draco and because Hagrid and Ron have told him, you don't want to be in Slytherin. All the dark wizards who have come out of Slytherin, okay? Which isn't quite true. Don't name any names. We're going to meet somebody later on who's a Gryffindor. While not a powerful dark wizard, a significant one, okay? So,
And not all wizards from Slytherin became.
and not all wizards from Slytherin are dark wizards,
Which we'll see
okay?
later.
So we get introduced to the potions master, Severus Snape. How does he come across at the beginning?
Bad. He's the bad.
How much does he like Harry?
Not at all.
So what does he do? It'd be like if I came first day of class and I knew your names and I said, Leah, and just boom, 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 rattled off 3, you know, deep questions about Lord of the Rings. And she's like, I don't know. Didn't think you'd prepare for the first day of class, did you? You know, kind of thing. What would you do at that point? I'll bet half of you would drop. They can't. Okay? Midnight Duel. What is the Midnight Duel, or what is it supposed to be? Harry and Draco are going to have it out. Draco cheats. Doesn't show up. Harry gets caught. So who has to have detention? Harry, Ron,
And Draco.
And
Draco, and Neville. Okay, we'll come back to that. Halloween, what happens in Halloween? My wife sent me a story years ago, 3 or 4 years ago. I don't know that it's true or not. Apparently it came from like a friend of a friend of a friend, you know. College student girl was in class. Class was really boring. She texted her boyfriend. And it was Halloween. You know where I'm going with this? Her boyfriend bursts in the door and says, "Troll! In the basement!" and falls on the floor. And the class just erupted in laughter. Even the professor. The professor's like, "Way to go, man. He's a keeper, you know." I don't know if it's true or not, but anyway. So, why do Harry and Ron, I skipped a lot. Why do Harry and Ron go to the girls' bathroom?
Because Hermione to save her, they
To save Hermione.
Why?
because they think
Who made her cry? Be
Ron.
specific. Ron.
The boy.
What did he say? Anybody remember? No wonder she has no friends. And he's like, well, it's true, you know. Quidditch. There's only one reason this game and every other Quidditch match are important. And it's because of this match. How does Harry win this match? Skipping all the other stuff. Catches it in his mouth, okay? I didn't talk about this. How did Harry get put on the Quidditch team?
Draco Malfoy was being a bully and stuff, Neville, and went after his little brother.
Flying lessons. Okay. Neville gets on his broom, and is Neville, you know, goes up and falls and breaks his arm. Professor Hooch takes him off to the infirmary, says, "Stay here." Neville gets his broom. Draco gets Neville's broom. Neville gets his broom. Neville's remembrall goes up. Harry gets on his broom, and what does he immediately discover?
He can
He's
fly
good at that.
really well.
I'm a natural. Talent? Oh my, yes.
And isn't he a legacy too?
Louder?
A legacy too, which helped him get on the team?
Possibly. What else does Harry do though? He- Before that, he challenges Draco, and so Draco throws it. And he goes into a 50-foot dive and catches it, and McGonagall goes, yes, we're gonna beat Snape. Notice, it's all about that, okay? What does that tell us about Harry? This is an important character detail.
He's good at something.
Okay, he's good at flying. What else?
He's noble.
Think this.
He's brave.
He's brave. He's noble. What do Gryffindors do? They don't shrink away from a challenge.
They protect others.
They protect others. They are chivalric, we're told. Okay? Gryffindor, the name comes from Griffin d'Or. Griffin, what's a griffin? It's a combination of an eagle and a lion. D'Or of gold. Right? Later on, we're going to find out what color. Not going to go there yet. Eagle and lion. Why? Why those two beasts? Why those two animals? Why not lion and vulture?
Eagles and lions are both very majestic creatures.
Keep going. You're entirely right. And I like
Very
the
honorable and noble.
use of the word majestic because that implies something about them. Eagle, king of the air. Lion, king of the beasts. Okay. There's another reason. Yes.
Often in medieval times, the eagle and lion are both used as symbols for royal families.
Use the symbols, as is the griffin. The griffin in medieval heraldry is a symbol of Christ. What? How do you get Jesus to be half eagle, half lion? Lion, king of the beasts, dwells where? Down here on earth. Eagle, king of the air, dwells up there in the heavens. Christ, if you go back to traditional Christian theology, two natures, fully God, fully man. Links the two in one person, okay? So, now we get to, and this is where we run out of time. We're not out of time yet, but we will be. The Mirror of Erised. How does Harry find the Mirror of Erised?
I think Filch.
Okay, they're out sneaking around, right? And they hear noises, and Harry goes off into this empty classroom. So think of this classroom. I think it's a pretty good analogy. But there's a window in the back, a mirror in the back that goes floor to ceiling. This is a huge mirror. It's not like a quote unquote full length mirror, it's massive, okay? And Harry goes in there. This is after Christmas. Because what's Harry wearing? His invisibility cloak. Very rare, we're told. What else did he get for Christmas? Who gave him the invisibility cloak? Yeah, we find that out at the end. We don't know that yet. It just says, your father left this in my keeping. Use it well. What's the use it well imply?
You're gonna need to use it.
Okay, what else does it imply? Use it! Okay, what does this give him? I mean, I know, confers invisibility. What does that really mean, though? For an 11-year-old kid in this big, massive castle, he can go wherever he wants and not get caught. Rules, schmools, you know. So, he goes off, he finds this mirror, bottom of 207. The mirror has written on it, carved on the top, Erised stra eru oit ube kavru oit anwosi, which means, anybody? I show you not your face, but your heart's desire. Just reverse it. Write it backwards. I don't show you your face, but your heart's desire. He looks in it. There's a whole crowd of people standing behind him. He looks in the mirror, and there's a bunch of people back there looking at the mirror. He turns around, there's nobody there. 208. He turns slowly back to the mirror. There he was, reflected in it, white and scared looking. And there, reflected behind him, were at least 10 others. There's nobody there. He looks back. Or were they all invisible too? See, he's wearing his cloak. And he sees himself in the mirror. Should he?
No.
No. He shouldn't see anything. He sees himself with a bunch of other people. Maybe they're invisible too. Maybe they're all wearing invisibility cloaks. Was he, in fact, in a room full of invisible people? And the mirror's trick was that it reflected them, invisible or not.
Ooh.
Interesting question. He looks in the mirror again. Time. A woman standing right behind his reflection was smiling at him and waving. So he looks, and like right here, there's a woman standing, smiling and waving at him. Okay? So keep that image in your mind. He reaches out to try to touch her. If she was really there, he'd touch her. Their reflections were so close, but he felt only air. She and the others existed only in the mirror. She was a very pretty woman. She had dark red hair. Her eyes are just like mine, Harry thought. Same shape. But then he noticed she's crying. What was she just a few seconds ago? Smiling and waving. Smiling and waving kind of indicates what? Hello, do you see me? I'm right here. And now she's crying. What has just happened? Is what he's seeing a figment of his imagination? No, it's not. What has happened on the part of the lady in the mirror? What does she now realize? Keep going. He, Harry, sees her. See, this, it's catching his attention. When he does this, she now knows. He saw me, and now she's crying. Why?
Because he can't touch her. She can't.
True.
They can't interact.
True. Why else? He sees me for the first time since he can be aware of seeing me. He's crying, smiling, but crying at the same time. Sorrowful joy, joyful sorrow. She's full of sorrow because she's here and he's here. She's full of joy because he sees her. The tall, thin, black-haired man standing next to her put his arm around her. Why? She said, he's comforting her. Notice how this is happening. It's real. It's in real time that this is happening. The man standing next to her realizes she's full of sorrow. I'm going to encourage her. Bear in mind what that word encourage literally means. To build up the heart. Inside, courage, bravery, okay? He wore glasses, and his hair was just like Harry's. And then, Mom, Dad, and they both just look at him smiling. Okay. What the hell is happening here? This, I think, I could be totally wrong. This is key to so much that happens later on in all the remaining 6 novels. What is Harry seeing? Okay, what does the mirror have inscribed? I show you not your face, but your heart's desire. Harry sees what when he looks in the mirror?
This place where he belongs.
Keep going. I mean, literally tell me what he's seeing. Describe it.
His family.
Just his family?
His family that he wishes he could have.
His family he wishes he could have?
His parents.
Yes.
That, like,
Yes, yes, yes.
died. His parents.
All of you are
acknowledged
missing one
him.
thing. Or maybe you're not. Maybe I'm just obtuse.
People who look like him.
Yes.
The family he could have had.
Yes. He sees himself with his family. Why is that significant? Where are they? They're all dead, folks. Is his heart's deepest desire to be with them? To be dead with them? Because what does he now see? And again, I could be reading into it. I don't think I am. Are they aware? Back here, those people that are back here, are they aware? Are they conscious?
I mean,
Seemingly, yes.
I know.
She does this, and then she's got tears, and then she smiles, and he puts his arm around her. All right. We'll stop there and never finish. Have a good weekend.